So I do see a shift in adoption, but there is still that mix of some people are like, I would never buy that. And then you've got people that are like, I have to have it. So it's tricky, but I think that's the biggest thing.
Hey there, my name's Ashley Church.
And I'm Erin West.
We were once newly promoted crime scene and latent print supervisors on mutual struggle buses as we both simultaneously tried to navigate through the challenges within our forensic units.
Now we run a business where we create tools and resources that we wish we had had to make these transitions easier. We like to talk about the experiences we've had in the forensic field, the good, the bad, and the ugly, in the hopes to create awareness around these issues and move the needle forward to create positive change in the forensic community.
So if you're a forensic professional, regardless of your years of experience, who's not afraid to dive into real, raw, and sometimes uncomfortable topics, you're in the right place.
This is the Forensics Unfiltered podcast.
Before we start this episode, our guests would like to share a disclaimer that the opinions shared are their own and not representative of their current or past employment. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy.
Welcome back to another episode of Forensics Unfiltered. We are so excited to have you guys back with us again. And tonight we have some very special guests from Foster & Freeman. You guys probably know them if you use Foster & Freeman products. You've probably seen them across the country. So tonight we have Becca Nick and Walter HILLER with us. We're very excited to have you guys. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It's exciting.
Yeah, thank you.
And we're going to dive in. They both came from very different worlds and came together at Foster & Freeman. So we're excited to pick their brains tonight on all different kinds of stuff. And you guys recently, probably many of you joined us for our Enhancing Bloody Prints webinar. It was a free webinar that we did collaborating with Foster & Freeman this past week. We had several hundred of you attend as we launched our brand new processing guide. So we hope you guys are enjoying those out in the world. But let's start with just some introductions. We'll start with you, Becca. So give us a little bit about your background and how you ended up in your current role at Foster & Freeman.
So I graduated from West Virginia University. I went through their forensics program, and it's a really, really good program. People come from all over the country, and they often have a lot of times have international students as well. But I can't say enough good things about it. Absolutely loved it. Loved my time there. Made some good connections with the professors, and I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do when I graduated. So I was, torn between crime scene and lab, but I don't like to do the same thing every single day. I've never been like that. I need change. I need variety. So I was a little bit hesitant to go into a lab because I knew it was a lot of the same stuff over and over again. And I thought, I could do crime scenes. But then I remember really vividly one time my husband, DJ, went to the hospital and had this really, really bad cut. And I was with him in the ER and I almost fainted looking at his blood. And they were like, are you gonna be okay? You need to sit down. And DJ just looked at me and was like, how are you gonna look at dead bodies? You can't even look at my leg. So I was like, yeah, maybe the crime scene aspect isn't as much for me. So unfortunately, I was like, I don't know what I want to do. So I started applying to a lot of different roles. I'd intern at the ATF and I was in the Federal Firearms Licensing Center, and I was liking it, but it wasn't exactly like fully into forensics. So I wasn't sure that I wanted to do that either. And then I got a call one day right after I graduated from my professor who said, hey, we just got a call from Foster & Freeman. They're really interested in getting another student. Elise, who some of you might know, who's our customer support manager, she was there. She also graduated through WVU's program. And they were like, we want another Elise. We want somebody, who's a self-starter, has, more of a salesy personality because this is a sales role. So my professor was like, I thought of you immediately. I think you'd be great for this role. But the only problem is you'd have to move to Virginia. And I was like, where in Virginia? Because I lived in West Virginia at the time, right outside DC. And he was like, this place called Sterling. I was like, oh my gosh, I work 5 minutes down the road from my dad. It's like, this is perfect. So I went in for an interview, and I think the next day I got the call that I got the job. So I started as a sales support specialist, I think was my first title. It's hard to remember now. It's been almost 8 years. And I started to do some inside stuff. So I was only supposed to travel occasionally to customers. Jason was the main sales guy at the time. And Jason Cole, I know all of you know him. He's done this podcast as well. But yeah, so he was supposed to be the outside sales guy. I wasn't supposed to do any of that. And then I went to my first customer visit, and I came back, and my boss was like, "Oh, you did really well. You should, maybe you should do more." And so as I was talking to customers, I was like, "Wow, I really really like this. I like going out and like teaching people about our products, like demonstrating, I like giving workshops." And it just kind of blew up from there. I then became the sales team lead when we added a few more people. And now I've got 7 full-time salespeople on my team spread all around the U.S. and 3 regions. And it is very time consuming and very stressful, but yeah, that's sort of how I've progressed to where I'm at.
I know it's been several years, but we were looking at the IR Tough Pad for one of the grants we were looking for. So Becca's the one that came out and did the training for not just us, but like our detectives and the chain of command. And
a couple agencies.
You were very good at it.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. You were one of my first ones. I think I did. I remember being super nervous. It was one of the first times you were like, "Oh, by the way, I invited like 25 people." And I was like, "Okay."
I would do that. I'm sorry.
I'm sure we'll talk about it more as we go through, but like, I know when I was in college, I really only thought that the only jobs in forensics were just like working at law enforcement. That's what you did. You went to school and then you went to work at a lab, or you went to work in law enforcement. And I ended up on military contracts for years and didn't even know that those existed. And you guys have kind of taken a different path in forensics, which I also didn't know existed when I first started out in college. So we'll talk about that more a little bit for people that like maybe the lab isn't their jam. Maybe they do like to teach and travel and do stuff like that. So, but before we do that, let's talk to Walter. Walter, tell us about your background.
Oh, wow. First off, I'd like to point out that back in my day, special was an insult, but it fits me. Thank you. Appreciate it. As far as my origin story, you'll see that it's always been my dream and my passion to be in the forensics industry. So I went to Montclair State University for broadcasting. I thought I'd be on the radio. This is my first podcast ever. Yeah, so I'm living the dream. And graduated with a bachelor's in broadcasting, then realized that the pay was awful. So then I worked for a rental car company for many, many years in a recession. I think it was 2000. Yeah, I'd say I was mildly suicidal during that stint. It was a wonderful job. Then I got a job at a plastics company, inside sales. So I sold sheet, rod, and tube plastic, and we did plastic fabrication. Fascinating job. Amazing, but I hated that one as well. Then after that, I tried desperately to get another job, but I was out of time. And I got a call from this guy from Specs Forensics, a division of HILLER Scientific. This is kind of like divine intervention. He found my resume that I didn't even know was out there on an outdated site, called my old place of work at Enterprise, got my number from the lady at the desk that just happened to have my cell phone number, and then called me for an interview. I was nasty to him. I'm like, all right, I'll interview with you, but it's got to be like 6 p.m. on a Wednesday because I have no more time. And he goes, okay. So I interviewed till around 11 o'clock at night. And pretty much at the end of that, I got that job. So from 2006 all the way to 2024, I sold forensic instruments. I was a forensic instrument specialist at HILLER Scientific. And I learned pretty much everything I know from either physicists within HILLER or from practitioners like yourself or other people that worked in specs before me. And then in 2024, I got a call from Becca asking if I'd have an interest in working for Foster+Freeman. I was not looking for a job. I was quite surprised. And I said yes. And now I'm living the dream. How's that for an origin story?
That's a great origin story. I didn't know that you knew so much about plastic, to be honest.
And tube, yeah.
I love it. But that brought you into the forensic world, and had all of those things not happened, you wouldn't be living your broadcast dream this evening with us.
That is true. And believe it or not, no one will believe this. I was quite timid for quite a while and frightened of public speaking. And now that's all I do. And I actually enjoy it quite a lot. And people say I'm decent at it. So, this industry, I just love the people in it, and they seem to accept me. I don't know if I'd be accepted in a normal corporate environment, we'll just say.
We're very accepting of oddities in forensics. Not that I'm saying you're an oddity, Walter. I'm just saying we've all come together. So let's see. So we'll start with Walter. So before you actually got into the forensic field, did you have any awareness of it, or like what was your perception of the forensic field from the outside kind of coming into it?
I had no awareness of forensics at all, and my picture of law enforcement was painted by living in a very small town in upstate Sparta, New Jersey, and I'd really say that my view of law enforcement was kind of more negative than positive. And I grew to love the community, even though I hate the word community, through working here, essentially. It's a calling for most of the people that do it.
So what has surprised you the most about the forensic community since you've become part of it?
Yeah, the community. I would say right now, if I'm looking outside in, I probably thought things were more coherent throughout the country. Everything was kind of done the same, and it seems to vary state to state, even municipality to municipality, just based on funding. So I'm just surprised. There are standards, but I'm also surprised how, from agency to agency, you could see slight deviations on how things are done SOP wise.
It's not even slight.
I was going to say, I think slight's very polite.
I was trying to be polite, so.
Yeah. I mean, we could go as far as you want to, but I think we were also shocked, like when we started teaching, with these companies, you get to see a very bird's eye view perspective of forensics. And that's something that I didn't even have, being in the community of forensics, until we started teaching across the nation. And it's like, wow, it's so different from not just like state to state, but like county to county, city to city within the states.
It's insane. Yeah. And even the webinar the other day is a perfect example, like a light source, a forensic light source. I mean, has been around for forever, right? And the fact that there's still people attending that don't have one and are not using one at their department. Like, you would think that at this point, that's just like a bare bones piece of equipment. And there's still departments out there that are not even using something like that. I mean, we had at the Christmas event that we did, the reindeer games, like we had departments that had no cameras. Like, they're using their own personal cell phones to take crime scene photos and stuff like that. It's just wild that kind of stuff is going on out there. So I think that was very, very polite of you to say that there was some slight differences, because it's pretty crazy out there that there's some departments that have a ton of funding and a ton of equipment, and some that just literally have nothing. So
transitioning back to Becca just for a minute. Becca, what was the biggest shift for you going straight from like academia to now sales? Because I mean, sales is a whole different world.
Yeah. I mean, I worked for my dad, who's probably going to listen to this if I had to guess. And he is by far the most strict boss I've ever had. So I always said, if I could work for him, I could work for anybody. He was managing, hundreds of people at one point. So I wouldn't say it was like intimidation wasn't really a factor. I think the biggest shock I had was going from being the student where you felt like you knew the least in a classroom and your professor was the expert, to then, I mean, in a matter of probably 6 to 8 months, I was out as the expert teaching people about concepts I had just learned. So there was a lot of imposter syndrome I had to get over. And I mean, I still have imposter syndrome today. Like, I'll walk into a room to teach a class and I'm like, do I really know the most about this topic? I think it's really humbling to go out And you have to keep an open mind too. You never should feel like you're the smartest person in the room, right? Because if you start doing that, then you have a whole other issue. But that was probably the biggest transition for me, and the biggest shock was, just moving from that role into now this role of an expert. But then also, I mean this in the nicest way. I was surprised how much people didn't know. So what I had learned at West Virginia, and I know, academia and real life practice completely different. Nothing is a substitute for experience, but I was going out teaching people about basic light theory principles. And I was asked the same question. I asked this in the webinar: how would you explain fluorescence to a jury? And I would say probably 90% of people I speak to cannot give me a solid answer. And I mean, fluorescence is, a general principle practice across all forensic disciplines. And what do you mean people don't understand how to explain it? It just comes second nature. So especially to us now, we talk about it every day, so it's a little bit different. But I was just shocked how much people didn't know. And I just kind of made it my mission. I was like, I'm going to be the one that teaches them. I'm going to make sure by the time I'm done, people understand how to talk about this. So I think that was probably my biggest shock.
And the sad part is, I remember like in my classes learning about light theory, but being able to answer those questions on stand, like you asked in the webinar. I mean, the 90% of people aren't able to answer those questions. That doesn't surprise me.
Well,
it's not part of the training, Erin.
Well, that's what I was going to say. You think about it too. If they have a training program, that actually dives into some of that stuff and teaches them that, once they get out of training, how often is that stuff revisited, where they can, feel very comfortable talking about that stuff to a jury. If it is a concept that's actually taught, then it's probably not a concept that is reinforced over time. So
I feel like the mentality too, and I don't know if you guys experience this as well, but we still have that mentality that exists in the forensic world. Like, why do I need to know that? Why does, forensic professionals need a science degree? Why do they need these science classes? Like, they think it's pointless to know like the steps in a presumptive test, and like, why does it turn the color pink? So they definitely don't think they need to know anything about the electromagnetic spectrum.
Yeah, definitely. So it's funny. I still tell this story at all of my classes. So my final for my fingerprint class, one of the questions was, what is the Stokes shift, right? Which is like the general principle of fluorescence. And I got the question wrong. And I remember going and arguing with my professor saying, when am I ever going to have to talk about the Stokes shift? And every time I see him, I'm like, I talk about it every single day. And he's like, I told you. Yeah.
You're like, you were right. I did need
it. You were right.
I did, in fact, need that.
Yeah. I feel like everybody feels that way, though. It's like, oh, when am I actually going to? I could just look it up in a book. I can look it up.
Well, I mean, I also feel like from where I'm looking at things, I have one singular focus: light, using it to process evidence. That's all I kind of think about. I'm also a technology nerd, whereas, depending on where you're working, I mean, you are pulled into multiple directions. You could be doing fingerprints, processing, photography. I mean, all these different things. So, I mean, I think that plays a factor into, why do I have to know this? Because I do so many different things. Why do I have to focus on this one thing, the science of Stokes shift or fluorescence or whatever,
Yeah, absolutely. So both of you guys kind of got into forensics in a somewhat non-traditional way. Obviously, Walter's very non-traditional way to get into the field. And Becca, even yours, even I'm sure coming out of college, you weren't necessarily expecting to end up in sales, but you guys have both been in forensics for many, many years now. Literally everybody knows you guys, and sees you at all the conferences and all of that. So you are very much a part of this world, even though you're not necessarily, going out and working scenes or working things in the lab, processing evidence and stuff like that. So if someone was looking to kind of get into what you guys are doing, either right from the get-go, or, maybe they're further along in their career and they're looking at pivoting into something else now, they're ready to get out of on-call life and out of, working bloody crime scenes and all of that kind of stuff. What recommendations would you guys have for them kind of getting into what you guys do as opposed to being out in the field?
So I think the biggest thing is, I know whenever we recruit from Foster and Freeman, we always think about who we know. So if you're one of those people that go to shows and don't talk to any of the vendors, right, you might be perfect for our position, but we don't know, we have no clue who you are. So go and talk to vendors for companies that you might want to work for. Because I've got a whole list of people now. I know that if I'm recruiting in a specific area, I've got, oh, okay, I know that person lives there and I talked to them and they might be a good fit. Let me call them or let me get their resume out. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, is just to get to know the vendors. And number one, you're going to see if you actually like the people that you potentially would be working with, because that would be a big factor. But then also it just makes you more memorable to those people. But then also, I think it's important to just say that, and I tell this to all, especially the younger people coming out of college that come interview with us. So I wouldn't necessarily say we're completely out of forensics. And I think that's what scares people the most about this job. And that was what I was the most, hesitant with it. It was like, oh, well, I spent all my time studying this, or I spent my whole career doing this. I don't want to leave it. And I always tell people, I don't feel like I'm not in it. I feel like we're at the front of it, right? Like I feel like we're leading the charge with adding new technology, making agencies more capable. And I know personally, I got into forensics to make a difference. That's been my biggest thing. I want to make a difference. I want to do this. I want to do that. And I've worked some cases with some agencies. Like I worked a case with an agency down in Delray Beach. I mean, this 38-year-old homicide, we were able to solve it with one of our pieces of equipment. And it was just so fulfilling. And I'm like, wow, okay, I really feel like I'm doing what I need to be doing. I just got an email. We had a mom of a homicide victim come in, and she was looking at one of our pieces of technology, trying to see how she could get her local agency to potentially use it. And she sent me this really nice email that was just like, you guys are making a difference. You're giving us hope. This is absolutely fantastic. So I always like to reiterate that to people. Don't feel like you're stepping out of the field. You're just shifting. And you're moving in a different direction within forensics, because forensics is more than just going out working crime scenes, doing fingerprints, working in a lab, being a detective, things like that. You're still very, very much involved, and you have to have the knowledge that you've learned through school or through your career in order to be able to do this job successfully. So I think that's important too for people to remember.
I really love that perspective too, because I do actually feel like you guys really are on the forefront of the technology. So most agencies are using older technology. There's not a lot of agencies that can purchase that best, greatest thing like the second that it comes out. And your companies are investing in figuring out what is the next biggest, best, greatest thing that's going to help us do our jobs even better. So I do really love that perspective that you're not outside of forensics. You're kind of at the forefront of forensics, of what's coming out, what's next, what's the next best thing. So I love that perspective. What about you, Walter? Any recommendations for people wanting to do what you do?
First off, I don't even know if I consider myself a salesperson or very good at it. I think of myself more as a consultant, because like salesperson, I think I got to get this sale no matter what, where I would rather tell someone what they need. And if they can't get what we provide, tell them how to start. Like for instance, if you can't afford a fancy light source, just get a UV light to start, and then use some Ardrox and then prove its use case. And then maybe you can move it to something more fancy. But I would say, yeah, definitely networking with the vendors. Demonstrate to yourself that you could take what some would consider a complex subject and boil it down into something that could be explained to an 8-year-old and have them understand it. And once you network with the vendors and you find something that piques your interest, because again, one of the other reasons I don't feel like a salesperson is I couldn't ever sell something that I think is garbage. I'm I just can't. I always tell people what I think would best suit their needs. So be able to network with the vendors, take complex subjects, boil it down into a very simple concept, and then find technology that you want to quote unquote sell, whether it's an APHIS system or a fingerprint system or forensic light sources or fuming chamber, whatever there is, and then go towards that direction. I would say never try to sell something that you don't believe in.
Love that. I was just telling Walter, because I've known Walter for years now. I knew Walter back when he was at Specs. And I was just telling him the last time he came to visit us that one of the reasons that we've always purchased from Walter and that we really like working with Walter is that he's never pressured us to buy anything. You know, he's always been like, this is what it is. This is how I feel about it. And it never felt salesy. It never felt like he was calling all the time, like, are you going to buy this thing? Like, he was always there to help us or answer any questions that we had, but he never pressured us to purchase anything. And so I was always inclined to buy from him because I never felt any pressure about purchasing from him, you know? I feel like Becca's that way too. But I do want to say one of the things you guys both mentioned about the vendor tables at the conferences, because you'll see so many, like when you're at a vendor table, you'll see so many people at the conference walking down the center aisle, like trying to avoid walking up to the tables. And like these companies are, I mean, these pieces of equipment that many of the companies are displaying at vendor tables, like you're not going to buy it there on the spot and they don't expect you to, right? I mean, if somebody is displaying like a $60,000 new piece of equipment, they're not going to stop you at the table and be like, purchase this thing right now, you know? So if you're not stopping at the tables, you're missing an opportunity to see all this really cool new technology that's out on the market. And like, okay, maybe your department is not going to buy you something that expensive right now, but there really are all kinds of grants and things out there that you can use to get some of this equipment. But if you're not stopping to check it out, you're not even going to know that it exists. So I would definitely take the time to stop at the vendor tables, obviously get to know these people. Everybody's usually, you know, pretty friendly and welcoming at the vendor tables. Obviously, they want you to stop by and check out what they have. But it's a great chance for you to check out like what pieces of equipment you could really use. And then you can go back and really brainstorm, like, how can we get that? And a lot of companies will even assist you in like helping to get their items. Do you guys do something like that? Like offer any kind of like grant ideas or when stuff comes out?
Have you heard about The Vault? It's the first ever membership exclusively for forensic training, and we have packed it full of goodies. So get this, you get instant access to over 20 webinar replays on everything from landing a job in forensics to field training to supervision. But that's not all. We're also throwing in some of our top e-courses, our Field Training Officer Virtual Academy, and exclusive forensic supervisor success kits from past virtual summits. And guess what? You get everything mentioned for just $29 a month, or you can grab a whole year for only $300. And we know many forensic professionals lately are paying for their own training, so we want to make sure training is affordable and accessible for everyone. There is fresh content every month, and that also makes it an endless learning opportunity for you. So it's a no-brainer. Join the Vault today and be part of the forensic education revolution. I'll include the link in our show notes, or you can head to our website to learn more. Don't miss out. Unlock your potential with the Vault.
And a lot of companies will even assist you in like helping to get their items. Do you guys do something like that? Like offer any kind of like grant ideas or when stuff comes out?
Yeah, we've got the power of our network. So that's mostly, you know, people are like, oh, I got this piece of equipment on this grant. We're like, oh, would you be willing to share your proposal? Or, you know, so we do a lot of, you know, connecting people together.
Yeah, that's great. We did just have a local agency because we just got their lasers and we used a grant to get one of the lasers. And then we had another local agency that wanted to use the same grant. And I literally gave her my whole copy of my grant proposal and everything so that she could use it. So those resources are out there, but you guys have to stop by the tables, figure out what you want, and make sure you're asking for it. So,
all right. So I know Erin hit on this already, but I want to dive deeper into the fact that you guys are on the forefront. It's not just, it's actually part of your slogan on your website. It says at the forefront of forensic technology for over 40 years. And I know you also have a whole section on your website that's all about innovation and new technologies. Not saying we make anything nearly as cool and high tech as you guys, but I know from our experience, we've gotten looks like we have three heads trying to introduce the forensic community with new things, new innovations, new ideas. I know our membership is just very foreign concept. Our virtual mock scenes that we just came out with, super foreign concept. People are like, what is this about? So I'm sure you have similar experiences whenever you're introducing new technology out into the field. So from your perspectives, what do you think the biggest barriers are to innovation in forensic science?
I think number one really is budget. So the more innovative and sleek and helpful a device is, the more expensive it's probably going to be, right? Because there's, value to what you're getting. So I think that's probably the number one thing we hear is that, oh my God, I would love that. It's just too expensive. It's too expensive. And that's why it's so important to have the knowledge of grants. And you have to have somebody, a motivated individual, to try to go and find those purchasing avenues, right? We get it. Most of the time, you don't just have an extra $50, $100, $150,000 sitting around. We get it. But we can help you find ways to get that. And I think that is probably the biggest barrier. I do feel some hesitancy, especially with the old school CSIs, photographers, latent print examiners, that they're like, I've done it this way for 40 years and I'm not changing because I've got a countdown to when I'm going to retire on the wall. And that's fine. What we target really, and the demographic we're targeting with a lot of our new equipment is this younger generation that's coming up through forensic science, all of these young individuals, because I mean, I know at least just at West Virginia University, they're graduating over 100 students every single year coming out looking for forensics jobs. So you've got a really young population that's coming up, and a lot of them are now becoming managers and able to actually purchase equipment. So I do see a shift in adoption, but there is still that mix of some people are like, I would never buy that. And then you've got people that are like, I have to have it. So it's tricky, but I think that's the biggest thing.
How about you, Walter?
You're talking about from the perspective of a company developing technology or people trying to get it?
I would say from the perspective of the actual forensic individuals, because obviously you guys are creating the innovative stuff. And then are you finding resistance trying to get forensic professionals to incorporate some of that innovative stuff?
I mean, yeah, I would agree with Becca about the money aspect. I mean, always money. But more importantly, I remember when I started, I'm like, oh my God, I'm going to fail miserably because everyone goes, we have no budget, we have no money, we can't get anything. And now I have the ear. You could hear if they really have no money or if they have no money at the moment and they're motivated to get money. So in addition to money, I think another barrier is just being self-defeating attitude. I hear people all the time being like, oh, that caused that. We'll never be able to get it. And they don't even try. So, just a self-defeating attitude. I've seen agencies that had a jurisdiction, I think literally of 5 square miles, and they ended up buying $250,000 worth of equipment from me, and probably, quite frankly, had no need for all of that equipment. So I would just say try, and try again. On the other side of things, I've dealt with an agency that started when camera was 1.2 megapixels, and they kept trying, and then 10 years later they were able to get the technology, same sort of concept, and it was 20 megapixels. So for 10 years this guy tried to get the same equipment and then finally got it. So money and the will to keep trying to get the equipment that is needed.
You guys are literally so, you're so speaking our language. You don't even know. So, can we talk about the summit?
Sure. Of course we could talk about the summit.
Okay, I'm just making sure. So we do a virtual conference every September, and this September it's all about like how to find funding and resources and all of that to get the equipment that you need. And one of the topics that we want to talk about is just the mindset of it all, because there's so many departments out there that are like, oh, they'll never get it for me. And like you said, they never ask, or they ask one time and they never ask again. I'm like a huge advocate of like, if you tell me no right now, I'm just going to put it down in the bottom of my list and I'll circle back to it when it gets back up to the top again. But also with funding, your department has money to put, they'll put money where they want to put money, right? So they come up with funds to get the SWAT team new vest or get, you know, whatever it is that they want and they think is valuable and important, they will throw money at that, right? And so sometimes it's not just about like, oh, this is something that the forensic unit could really use. Sometimes it's about figuring out how to convince the agency that it's something that they really need and they can really use. So like I mentioned earlier that we just got the lasers. Well, like I contacted Walter and I was like, tell me everything this laser can do. And he was like, it can do this, it can do that, it can do whatever. Well, one of the things that came up in that conversation was like the laser being able to see behind walls or something, like when something's been cut out of a wall or whatever, something like that. And drug residues, right? Not things we do in forensics. Like I want to use it for latent prints. I want to use it for like searching for biologicals. I'm not going to really use it to like search through walls and stuff like that. But my chain of command, man, they drooled when they heard that, when they were like, oh, it'll go through walls and we can look for drug residue. And they got all kinds of excited. They could care less about the other things that it did. All of a sudden, that was a really great piece of equipment to have at the department's disposal, should we ever need to use that. So sometimes like some of these pieces of equipment, you got to get some other people on board, right? Some other units that are excited about how they can use these things. And that sometimes is what gets you the funding for that. And I know you guys go out all over the country and you'll do presentations and stuff like that. I'm sure that's what Ashley dragged you into, Becca, when you showed up and there were 25 people there. I'm sure it was like the whole chain of command to see whatever this new product was. But, you know, you guys can do that kind of stuff and they can demo equipment to your chain of command and like explain like how it can be used by the department as a whole and not just forensics. And sometimes that is the kind of information they need to decide that the purchase is worth it, you know?
Sometimes they just need to hear it from someone else too. You know, I could tell them all these great things about it, but when they hear it from someone else, it's like magic. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Or even just different structures, you know, certain grants, if you cooperate with surrounding agencies, I mean, you have a higher chance of getting grant money. So you could be like, oh, I'm in this multi-county or county-wide, you know, task force with all these different agencies. You might be able to fund a lot of equipment just because of the cooperation aspect of things. So just different ways of thinking about how to structure, you know, grant proposals and things like that.
Yeah,
it's a skill.
Absolutely. So the next question we have for you guys is, have you guys seen different attitudes as far as like accepting and embracing new technology between the United States and other countries or European countries? Because Foster and Freeman is primarily located in Europe, right? United States is secondary.
Hey, it's Ashley from Gap Science, and I had to hop on here and tell you something super important. I wanted to let all of our forensic friends know that we have something huge coming your way this September. But first, what we need to know is, do you currently feel stretched very thin? Feel like you don't have all the resources that you need, not just to do your job, but do your job well? Or like you're constantly being asked to do more with less? If this sounds like you, first, you are not alone. There are so many forensic units across the nation, worldwide, that are in the same boat. But most importantly, you are not out of options. We have created the Forensics on a Budget Summit just for you. This is a virtual event. You can think of it like a virtual conference, but Better, made just for forensic professionals at law enforcement agencies on small or tight budgets. Now, this is not for forensic units that are fully equipped with all of the fancy equipment and have an ample amount of people on their team. We are talking specifically to those that are working with the bare minimum or maybe even less than that. You'll hear from over 20 experts over a span of 4 days, sharing real practical strategies to get the most out of your budget. Everything from creative funding options to training hacks to tools to advocate for your unit and systems you can actually implement even when the answer is usually no. If this sounds good to you, I want you to head to www.forensicsonabudget.com. That's forensicsonabudget.com. And if you're listening to this before registration opens in September, then you will be joining our VIP waitlist and you will be the first to know when the free tickets are available. And if you're listening to this and the registration is already live, don't wait. Grab your free ticket. Yes, I said free, and join us in September for this one-of-a-kind summit built just for you. We are so excited and can't wait to see you there.
As far as like accepting and embracing new technology between the United States and other countries or European countries, because Foster and Freeman is primarily located in Europe, right? United States is secondary.
Yeah, so we do business in well over 100 countries through a big distribution network. So most of my experience is between the US and Canada because we cover both countries from our US office. And just from what I've seen with Canada, it does seem like Canada is a bit more receptive to adopting technology than the United States. I think part of that, though, is because they're a bit more uniform with how they actually do their, like everybody goes through the Ontario Provincial Police College, or they go through the different agencies and programs that they have in Canada, and it's a bit more structured and consistent throughout the different provinces up there. So I do think like the example that's coming to mind is the lasers, actually, because I mean, for a lot of agencies in the US, like, they've never had a laser, and we, like, if they buy our laser, it might be the first one that they've ever had. Whereas people were using the coherent tracer laser in Canada for a long time before the US fully adopted it. And it's like having a blue ALS. Like in Canada, is you have, everybody has a laser. That's just what that's what they do. And so I feel like we're starting to see that trend a little bit more in the US, but a big part of it though is because all of the jurisdictions are doing different things like we talked about before, and it's difficult for everyone to do one cohesive thing. And it makes sense because not everywhere is treated the same, right? Like there's different issues in different states and different parts of the US. But if I think about it internationally as well, just from my limited experience that I have with some of the overseas projects, a lot of those countries are similar to Canada in that they do things all in a very similar way. So there'll be like framework agreements for entire countries to outfit the entire country with this specific light source or this specific technology. So I feel like they're receptive to technology, but again, it depends on the country. In European countries, most of them are a little bit better. I wouldn't necessarily say they're the best. I mean, everyone still has hesitancies when it comes to actually adopting technology, but I think the US is just one of the worst, to be honest. It does seem like other countries do want to, open up and test things out a little bit more.
I do think we are kind of in a transitional period too, where we have some of those old timers, like the ones that have been in the field 40, 50 years. I'm not learning anything new because I'm about to retire, are starting to age out. And then we have just this massive influx of people coming in that are super young and honestly going through college programs that have some of this stuff in school. They're already using a lot of these different pieces of equipment. We have some graduates from Westview, like they were using like the DC-5 and stuff in their class. And then they came in and they're like, this is your equipment, like they came in like seasoned, like ready to go. So I feel like we're in that transitional period where you know, some of those people that really came up in a time where there wasn't a lot of technology are starting to leave, and then we're getting this massive influx of these really young students that are coming in expecting to use that technology like as soon as they get into the field. So
on the topic of, you know, new innovative technology and all these things, are there any new developments Foster and Freeman is working on that you're allowed to tease or hint at? What's the next newest thing?
When is this airing? When does this come out?
probably
Sometime
soonish.
mid-June.
Yeah.
Mid-June. Okay. We do have a major product launch next month. Major. It's a fingerprint system. And if you want more information, you're going to have to look at our socials for it. Because it should be out. We should have a second teaser. We put a teaser out today. So it's the end of May right now, but we put a teaser out today, and then we'll have some teasers in the next couple of weeks that will hopefully give you some more insight as to what that's going to look like.
That's very exciting.
Yes. I wish I could say more.
Well, look at what did they tease today?
I know, that was my first thought. I'm like, I want to go look.
Yeah,
and see
so
what
it's
was
a little bit of a riddle. So you'll have to
Hey.
see over the next few weeks what we put out to see if you can figure it out.
All right. So how does Foster and Freeman stay ahead of the curve when it comes to designing new tech and implementing new tech, especially in a field that's kind of slow to change?
So I think we're different from other forensic science manufacturers, and I think we ask. I just need to make sure I don't give away any trade secrets here. So we seek out a problem and then try to find a solution. So, because it's pointless to make a product that is a solution when there's not the problem to begin with, because then nobody's going to buy it, right? So we engage a lot with our end users to say, this is our idea. Do you think it will work? Or do you have a problem? And if so, what would your ideal solution look like? So we have over 40 individuals in our research and development team over in the UK. A lot of them are just involved with buying stuff in, trying it, seeing if you can put two things together, seeing if you can improve different devices and the multiple disciplines that we do research and development in. But I think that's what kind of sets us apart, is that we have all of these individuals that are constantly looking at the next thing that we're going to bring out, right? So a lot of companies are playing catch up and just trying to redesign their existing products, where we're looking for new stuff. And we've got a whole list of research projects that we're constantly working on. Some that might be 10, 15, 20 years down the road. But that we have to do that in order to stay ahead of the curve. But because we have so many people, we have to keep them busy somehow. So they're just over there. You just walk in there and it's just silent every time you go in R&D, and you're like, what is everybody doing? Smile. And then you go down to the sales team and they're all just, chatting with each other.
My husband's R&D.
Yeah, you get it.
Erin, is that like comforting to know that there's other companies with like a bazillion things to occupy their time for the next 20 years?
Yeah, we constantly are telling ourselves we're not going to take on any more projects. No more projects.
Oh, you can't. You have to. That's how you continue to be great.
Endless. Yeah, we have endless lists of projects. So
I would also say, being out in the field, if we see something, if there's a need, we are encouraged to bring that to the attention of our R&D team. And as soon as I joined and I was able to go visit the manufacturing office in the UK, I mean, they were showing me some new things on the horizon that Becca may have referred to, and they were eager to get my opinion of those things. So they're always looking for feedback. And if we see something, we're always encouraged to say, hey, maybe we could improve things this way. I mean, just with the Crime Light Auto alone, since I've been here I've been here a year. No one wished me happy anniversary, by the way, that I know of. Maybe on my LinkedIn page. Yeah, I'll keep doing it. Yeah, don't worry about it.
He gave me hell about this morning. He's like, oh, by the way, yeah, happy anniversary to me. I'm like, yeah, you should be freaking saying happy 1 year dealing with me, Becca. That's what you should have said.
I didn't. Anyway, yeah, we've established that Becca's insensitive. Yeah, very good. Anyway,
See, this is why I have a therapy jar. This is the between him and Jason, you should feel bad for me.
Oh, I bet it's bad. Yeah.
It's
anyway, in the year I've been here, I mean, they've updated firmware on our handheld multiple wavelength light, the Crime Light X, and made it so much better than when I started. And the Crime Light Auto, I mean, we've released a filter to reduce backgrounds on fingerprint and enhance visualization of injuries. Just an attachment that snaps on the front, and then the firmware updates and so they're constantly updating things and making it better and better and better. And I'm quite impressed, being kind of an outsider, seeing how we do things. So it's just constantly trying to get better. One other thing I'll say about this company, opposed to others I've seen on the market, is consistency in what we do. And what I mean by that, like everything that we send out light source wise, we have a printout of our wavelengths and our filters, and everything is consistent. It's a very science-based solution. Whereas you could buy a blue light from Amazon, you have no clue what the real wavelength is. You have no clue how wide it is. You don't know if it's leaking through your goggle. You don't know if it's ineffective. You don't have that problem with us, because we do have all those people researching what the best combination of wavelengths and filters and, intensity and all these different things. Very impressed.
That's awesome. So let's talk about Facts 25, shall we? So you guys this is your first year, right? This is your first year doing a conference.
The big one, yeah.
So tell us a little bit about this conference. Who should be attending this? What are you most excited about for this conference?
Yeah, so, I mean, we might start with a concept. So for years, I've been telling Dave, my boss, who's president of FNF USA, I've said, oh, wouldn't it be great just to get all of our users together? And he's like, yeah, but that is so much work. I'm like, yeah, but it would be so great. And I'll take the reins and he's just like, that'll be a lot of work. I'm like, yeah, I get it. So then we bring Walter on, and one of our very early phone calls we always have, I said, I've had this idea to do this user conference. He's like, oh, been there, done that. And I'm like, great. So now we're going to do one, and he's going to get all the credit. So he joins, and then now all of a sudden we're having a user conference. But it's more than just a user conference. So what we've done is we've got together with all of our partners. So, of course, our faves, Gap Science. We partner with FIU and the Global Forensics Justice Center. And so that's actually the location that we're having it at. So it'll be in Largo, right outside of Tampa. Beautiful location. We have an amazing hotel right on the waterway. So that is going to be really amazing. There's educational content too, but I'm getting into the important stuff. We're also having what are we calling it? Networking cruise.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Unofficially, it's a booze cruise.
We'll be there. We will be there.
Officially, for your administration, it is a networking cruise.
Of course.
Yeah. So, I've always thought, we go to so many conferences, and a lot of them that we go to are amazing. There's some not so great, not going to name any ones, but I mean, everybody's been to the conference. We're like, oh no. So we just always think, oh, if we were running it, this is what we would do. And so we just thought, why not? We're going to have a fun hospitality suite. You don't really see many of those anymore. There are some that are still pretty fun, but we're going to have, the hospitality suite. We're going to have lectures and workshops people actually want to participate in and want to listen to. And yeah, it's going to be 3 days, all II approved for research and certification credits for most of their boards. And yeah, it'll be fun. So it'll be great for Foster and Freeman users, because a lot of our products will be incorporated into the training. It's also great for people who might be on the fence about purchasing something, that want more information or want to actually use it over the course of a few days. Or it's good for, students coming out of college that want to network. It's pretty inexpensive to attend. Right now it's $250, and I can announce we're extending the early bird pricing to the end of July. So we know it's been a tough year for budgets, and we're trying everything we can to just help people get through that period, because we know that most budgets flip over July 1. So we're just giving you to the end of July to try to try to secure that when your new budget year starts. But yeah, so it's really open for anybody. You do not have to be a Foster and Freeman user to attend. So if you want more info, you can check it out on our website, and there's a website dedicated to facts. It's facts25.info.
Yeah, we'll drop it in the show notes too. But it's definitely very inexpensive as far as conferences go. So it's a great opportunity to, go to some classes and stuff like that. But it does look fun. It does look fun. And I mean, we're going to be there, so it'll totally be fun. All of us will be there. But
exactly.
But it also, like I was telling Ashley the other day, because we were scoping out the website is sexy too. I mean, chef's kiss. Like,
good, right? Yeah.
I mean, some of the conferences, like, you'll see, like, they'll post like the whole schedule on an Excel spreadsheet, and you're like, oh my God, like I can't even find my class, or like what class I want to attend.
Yeah.
So we were poking through the website the other day. It's just beautifully made. It looks like it's going to be a very, very fun event. So
yeah, I can't take credit for that. That's Matt, our website designer. He is amazing.
I love his designs. They
are very good. And I just want to point this out. So somebody told Walter that he made Foster and Freeman fun. We were fun before Walter joined. Okay. I just need it recorded that we were fun before Walter. Walter is fun, but we were fun before him. Okay.
I will say, and Walter knows this, but I'm usually not. I mean, I'm glad you guys went with an evening cruise instead of the standard banquet. I'm not typically like a huge fan, of the banquet, but the most fun banquet I've ever been to was when I sat at a table with Walter.
You just have this energy where people are like, I don't know what it is about him, but there's something there. And then they just
That was the first time I met him too.
So I knew Walter, and we were walking through this hotel, and I see Walter, and I say hi, and Ashley thought that she had met Walter already at some previous time. So
because that happens.
She went in to give him a hug, and he was like, "Oh," are we doing this? And she was like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I thought we knew each other." And then I think they did hug, actually. And then after
we did. Yeah.
We were all friends, and we all sat together at the banquet. It was great.
Oh, it was good times.
Oh my God.
It was good times. So I will say this that made something else pop into my brain too about our forensic community, as Walter loves to call it,
Yeah, I love community.
But we're actually very small, right? Like when you get into forensics, you think it's like this big, massive world. And after you've been in forensics for a little while, like everybody starts to know everybody. So like when she first met Walter in college, she probably never would have thought that they'd be working together like way down the line. That we'd all be here together tonight doing this podcast. But here we are.
Living out his radio dreams,
That's right. His broadcasting dreams.
What do people say? Oh yeah, I have the face for radio, right? Is that how you feel? You have the face for radio?
Yeah.
I mean, I definitely think Walter could make radio work.
For sure.
I've been told I should start a podcast. I'd have to go under some pseudonym because I would probably get fired.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that is probably funny.
I would absolutely listen to your podcast, Walter.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Sign me up. Whenever you come up with your anonymous name, you just sneak it my way. I will listen to it for sure.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Interestingly enough, Aaron and I have had, I can't even take credit for it. This is Aaron's dream. Podcasting, I was like, let's do a podcast. I was dreaming that small. Aaron wants to do a conference one day. And so we have feelings. We have similar feelings to what Becca was saying earlier, where there's just like some conferences or like there's something to be said about tradition, but we can make it better. So why is a conference like Facts 25? Because we know with Walter and the Foster Freeman crew, it's going to be so much fun. Why is it so important for the current forensic community right now?
So I would say the user conference that conferences that I planned and I was a part of, I have some contacts that I will have for life. And all I have to do is call them up. It could be years from now, and they'll just like help me in any way that I ask, as long as it's somewhat reasonable. So, just the networking opportunity, it's way more intimate. And I just think you'll get some connections that maybe you would not be able to make in a larger conference setting.
Yeah, and I feel, just to add to that, I feel that over the last few years, especially since COVID, really, when we had this trial with virtual conferences, which for vendors never worked out very well. I don't know if you guys ever attended virtual conferences as vendors, but it was not the best. But I feel like there's been this sense of people not wanting to network. Like everyone goes to their room at night. You go to hospitality suites and they're empty. And I remember when I first joined, that I was told you better be in the hospitality suite because that's where you're going to do business, right? And it was packed. There were so many people. It was great. Everyone was having fun. Everyone was, it didn't matter where you came from. If you came on your own, you came with a group of 10 people. Everybody had this big sense of community. And I just feel like since COVID, and Walter, I know you and I've talked about this before, it just feels like people don't do that anymore. They don't network. They all stick with the people they came to the conference with, and that's it. You just go back to your room, you go to dinner, you go to bed, and then you just get up and you go to class the next day. And I mean, that's great if that's what you want to do, but a big purpose of conferences is to network, and that aspect is just not what it used to be. And that's been in the 8 years that I've been in the industry. I've seen it decline. So we're hoping to change that and to bring it back. And hopefully, this becomes an annual thing for us and we can grow it to be something that people want to come to every year and have fun at. But more importantly, learn.
But also fun. Yeah.
But also fun. Yeah.
So thank you guys so much for joining us today, sharing all of your insights about the future of forensics, the upcoming Facts 25. We can't wait to hang out on the networking cruise with you and the rest of the forensic community that will be in attendance. So if listeners want to connect more with you guys and Foster & Freeman, how can they do that? Where can they find you guys?
Yeah, so we're on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. Our website's pretty easy, fosterfreeman.com, or you can just email us. So our email for the U.S. office specifically is just usoffice@fosterfreeman.com. So if you want more info about facts, about any of our products, or if you just want to talk to Walter on the phone, I mean, his number will be available. So
just his number will be made available.
Yeah, exactly. At your disposal.
Insomnia,
any time of night.
Sleep? Yeah, no problem.
You can continue to live out your broadcasting dreams long after this podcast is over.
All right, amazing. Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us. It was super fun to have you guys on. And thank you everyone for listening to another episode of the Forensics Unfiltered podcast. That's all we have for you guys today, and we hope to see you at the next one.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being here and listening to Forensics Unfiltered. If you liked this episode, would you do us a favor and leave a review letting us know specifically what you liked about this topic? It will only take a minute, but it will really help us plan future episodes so we can bring you more topics that you want to listen to. We'll be sure to provide any links from today's episode in our show notes on our website. Head to www.gapscience.com. Until next time, stay safe out there.
You look like a 6 out of 10 anxiety right now. Am I pretty close?
I drove 7 hours round trip and got stuck in a love bug storm.
Oh, those are fun.
The front of my grill is like black, at least I killed them when they're happy and humping. But
What? Wait. I'm not from Florida, so I need to know what a love bug is.
Oh, it's love bug season, girl. Your entire car is usually black.
They connect to each other. Like he said, they're humping, they're mating right now, so they connect to each other and they fly around connected to each other.
Oh, geez.
And they just get all over your car and stuff.
Oh.
So I was driving to Tampa on 60 and it just sounded like a rainstorm of love bugs. And I'm
just
like,
wiping them off.
I took, yeah. Well, the windshield was just like a haze. Like I could barely see when I got to Tampa. So
Let me tell you, I'm so excited to come down to
even
Florida
worse.
next month.
Yeah, it's not even worth
Yeah.
like washing your car right now because you'll wash it and then tomorrow you'll be covered in love bugs again. So
Nice.
Yeah.